Hey guys, Dani here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Today we're going to talk about the Blue Yeti Pro and the differences between that and the Blue Yeti. As many of you have probably noticed, pretty much everyone who's anyone on YouTube has a Blue Yeti. In my opinion, I think it's better to invest in the Blue Yeti Pro instead of the Blue Yeti, especially for musicians, because it's better equipped to take you into the future farther than the regular Blue Yeti. So, what are the differences between the Blue Yeti and the Blue Yeti Pro? Well, aesthetically, the Blue Yeti comes in a ton of different colors, 7 to be exact, whereas the Blue Yeti Pro only comes in one, which is blackout. But functionally, the Blue Yeti Pro has 2 important features that the Blue Yeti lacks, which is why I recommend investing in the Blue Yeti Pro instead of the Blue Yeti. The first is the XLR connection. The Blue Yeti has a micro USB to regular USB connection, which you plug in directly to the computer. Whereas the Blue Yeti Pro has that same connection, but it also has an XLR connection, which is basically the analog way of transmitting sound. What this analog connection will eventually be able to do with you when you buy the necessary equipment to use it is it'll give you the better flexibility in order to edit your sound, especially as a musician. That's so important, because if you want to use the Blue Yeti to record vocals, you want to be able to edit it to the best of your ability and have the most flexibility that you possibly can. The second feature that the Blue Yeti Pro has over the regular Yeti is that the Pro records sound at 4 times the rate than the Yeti, which once again gives you more flexibility in editing. So clearly the Pro is better. But is it really worth the extra $100 to spend to get those 2 features? I think it really is, because in the long run, you end up saving a lot more money. If you invest in the Yeti now and want to eventually get up to the Pro, you're gonna have to try and sell the Yeti, which you will not get your full money's worth back, and then purchase the Pro, when you could have just purchased the Pro from the get-go and end up saving money. Even if you end up not going with the Yeti when you buy a new microphone, you still end up spending more money in the long run, because to get a really good microphone with an XLR cable can become quite expensive. And especially with the Yeti's different pickup patterns, to buy all of those microphones with those pickup patterns is going to run you a lot of money. Eventually, when you get seriously into music, the Blue Yeti Pro is a great way to start your setup. If you end up deciding to go with the Yeti Pro, or even just the regular Yeti, there are some great accessories that I recommend that you try to pick up. These include a boom arm, a shock mount, and a pop filter. Now I'm going to explain 2 sets of options for these things. The first set is going to be the top of the line and what most people recommend to you, but these things are very costly. But I'll also recommend some cheaper alternatives to get similar quality until you can actually save up for these high quality products. So for the top of the line stuff, the things that I recommend would be the Rode PSA-1, the Blue Radius 2 shock mount, and the Blue pop filter. These will help elevate your Yeti off the ground, because when you are recording and it's still on the stand that it comes with, it tends to be a lot lower than where your voice naturally is. So it might cause some distortion, as well as not give you the best sound that you can get out of the microphone. So the boom arm raises the microphone to a level that is actually where your voice is, or where your mouth is. The shock mount helps keep the microphone in place so that if there's any jostling or movement, the microphone won't pick it up. And the pop filter helps with plosives. Plosives are those P's and B's that are very harsh and can ruin your audio recording, as well as protect from moisture entering the microphone. If you buy all of these 3 in conjunction with the Blue Yeti, you're going to end up running a pretty penny. So what I suggest you do is get some alternatives to start out with, and then save up and work up for the bigger and better things. A super good and inexpensive alternative to the Rode PSA-1 is actually a newer boom arm. I have actually purchased the newer arm because I haven't been able to afford the PSA-1 yet. And on Amazon, when you go and look for it, it'll say that it doesn't support the Blue Yeti because the Blue Yeti is actually quite heavy. But as long as you don't put a shock mount on it, you can support the Yeti with the newer arm. Just make sure that you don't jostle it around too much as well as swing it around too much, because it's a little unstable because yes, it's not built for the Yeti, but it will work. The second money-saving tip is to not get the shock mount right away. Until you get the Rode PSA-1, you shouldn't get the shock mount because, as I mentioned, the newer arm doesn't support the Yeti properly. So if you add the shock mount to that, which you technically can, it won't be able to hold the weight of the microphone and the shock mount. Lastly, the pop filter. You can get a ton of cheap pop filters on Amazon for like $5, and they work just as well as the blue pop filter. So I'll leave all the links to all 6 of these items below, and you can check them all out and see what you think. My advice to you, if you want to look into getting the Blue Yeti Pro, but you don't want to spend the large costs that it actually costs to buy a Blue Yeti Pro outright, here are a few tips to help you save some money. Check secondhand stores in person and online. I personally bought my Blue Yeti Pro from Kijiji for about $100, which is actually cheaper than the Blue Yeti regularly is, and extremely cheap from the Blue Yeti Pro. The person from Kijiji that I bought it from actually had only used it 3 times, and it ended up not working for what he needed because he didn't have the right connections to use the XLR. So he ended up selling it. Like I mentioned previously, I even have the newer boom arm, which I got for about $15 on Amazon while it was on sale. So that altogether, I spent about $115. Well, actually I also bought a pop filter for like $5. So let's say $120. So I spent $120 and I have a professional grade mic, a boom arm, and a pop filter, which for what I have is a steal. So all the products that I mentioned in this video will be linked in the description below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see weekly music content, consider subscribing. I hope to see you guys next week. Bye!